Welcome back. We're here for episode number 30. A little bit more of an emergency episode. Obviously, if you can tell by the title, wide receiver, five-star wide receiver Brandon Inniss committed to the Sooners today, or yesterday as you're watching it. Big time get, and we're going to talk about him and as far as what he brings, the wide receiver depth that the Sooners are going to have whenever that class comes to Norman, and the implications of this on the 2022 class. So just mainly just wide receiver and depth and recruiting for this episode. We really appreciate all the support we've gotten. We just hit 500 subs, or we're just over that now. We're growing. We really appreciate it, and keep spreading the word. And make sure to hit that like button. And if you hadn't already, please hit the subscribe button. It helps us out a whole lot, and it lets us know that you guys like what we're putting out. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into it. Obviously, Brandon Inniss just committed today. He's a 2023 five-star wide receiver, number 9 overall, number 1 wide receiver in the class. Almost identical rankings as Luther Burden. So the Sooners lose Luther Burden in the 2022 class and then pick up the 2023 guy, basically the same rating. Fort Lauderdale, Florida, at American Heritage, 6 foot, 190-pound kid. And he's only played 1 year of varsity and as a sophomore. And, it's during COVID. So I'm not sure if his season was cut short or whatnot. I'm sure it wasn't the normal length, but he still had 28 catches for 637 yards and 5 touchdowns as a sophomore on varsity, which regardless if it was a full season or not, that's a pretty solid year as a sophomore. That's the best you could ask for. He had offers from Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State, Texas A&M, and 31 other schools. So a total of 36 offers, obviously, that the Sooners offered. A little bit on him and what I've seen and kind of watched. He's a very good route runner. He knows the route tree pretty crisp. He goes up and high points the ball and is very aggressive. And it seems like he's got a team first mentality too, as far as he'll go out and block, he'll do whatever. If he's not catching the ball and he's not in the game plan, I feel like he's the type of kid that is fine with that. As long as they win, he'll do what it takes. He'll do what he will do what it takes to win. I can't talk. And he's not afraid to get dirty because, sometimes some receivers are too pretty and don't want to block and go out there and seal the edge. And I don't think he's one of those guys. So, Jose, what do you think about him?
Yeah, I agree 100%. He seems like a team guy. That was something that impressed me. When you're so young, you probably want to do as much as you can to pop up on these recruiting websites like 247, ESPN. You want to be the best in your class. And he might be a guy that is something that is cool to him or is important to him, but that doesn't mean that isn't going to do what's necessary, like blocking, making sure that his guys can get to the secondary and make plays up back there, because that's just as important as catching the ball. The thing about Brandon that is different from the other receivers that we even have and that have already gotten commitments from is he isn't like super explosive. He doesn't have the athleticism that you're going to be like, holy cow, this guy is a burner. No one can keep up with him. And he's also not like the biggest dude either. He's a good size, 6 feet tall. I think right now he measures at 190 pounds last time it was checked. So it's not like, and I guess he's only 16, so it's impressive, but he might gain another inch or two and he'll probably gain maybe 10 pounds at the most. So by the time he gets to college, he'll be at least 6 feet, 200 pounds, more than likely, maybe 6'1", 200. So he's going to be a solid build. What's impressive about him is his ability to get the ball. Like you said, he high points the ball very well, but he's not scared to make the contact when necessary. He will go through a DB if he has to get that ball. It doesn't matter. His mentality seems to be see ball, get ball, and nothing's going to stop him from doing that. So I think that's going to be something that's very different for him, opposed to, like I said, the rest of our wide receiver talent right now. A lot of them are just scary fast, super athletic in some way, either super agile. This guy's just a true wide receiver that's going to go up and probably going to add something different to this offense, right? We haven't seen a guy probably like Brandon in the offense since, I don't know, maybe Sterling Shepard. Sterling wasn't like scary athletic. He was just a good athlete that was a great wide receiver. I mean, it's hard to compare him to anyone we've had just because I don't think we've had someone like him athletically, at least.
Yeah, so I've got 2 points. You brought up a couple good points as far as comparison and his athletic ability. I really think the only person, or not the only person, but someone that he can relate to or be compared to is someone who hasn't even taken a snap in the regular season for the Sooners, is Jalil Farooq. I mean, basically, I think Jalil Farooq is like 6'1", 200 pounds. So nearly the same exact size. And I think Sterling Shepard was near around that size as well. But, Farooq was a 4-star and, I think top 120, top 130 kind of player, according to 247. But, he was a great, great route runner. He knew the entire route tree, or he knows it all. And for him to get an edge was to know all that and be technically sound, because like you said, some guys are just so athletic and are so much better as far as an athlete that they can just win in high school. I feel like Jalil was more of he had to work at it. He had to refine his stuff, and that's how he did well. And the reason why I think Brandon Inniss is so far, rated higher, top 10 in the country right now, is because basically he's got the same capabilities, but as a sophomore. Well, I mean, going into his junior season. So his capabilities of, another 2 years in high school before he even goes to college, the ability to progress over those 2 years is going to be a lot higher than what Jalil was. It's just he's like 2 years earlier, or 2 years further along than Jalil was at the same age, which, that I mean, not a shot at Jalil, because Jalil, I think we've got a who dat, or I think that's coming out here pretty soon. But I think he's going to be a terrific player, and I think Brandon Inniss, his ceiling's just a touch higher, just because he's younger. And then another thing is, as far as personality goes, I think it's going to really resonate with what the Sooners are needing and what it's going to take to be a part of this 2023 class. You have to be willing to, not be it's all about me type deal, because there's going to be players on that team that are going to be just as good as you and can get open, just as good as you. And, maybe it's their game where they're 150 yards and you're only at 30 yards. And it's just because of the matchups and the coverage and whatnot. And I think it takes a lot of self-awareness and humbleness to be able to do that and put the team first, because I'm sure I've never been in that position as far as playing football. I've never been good enough, but I'm sure it gets tough after a while if you go 2 straight games and, they're just feeding Mekhi Lemon. And then you might go on a 3-game stretch where you're getting the ball every single play. It just depends on who you're playing in the matchups. So I really think that's going to make a big difference in the ability in this 2023 class. And it seems like he's not the only one that has it. I mean, Trayon Webb, he's recruiting Richard Young and some other running backs. So it's just like, a guy that wants it to be about him wouldn't do that. And I think Inniss is the same way. Mekhi Lemon and all those guys are going to they just want to be the best and win it all. I think that's what it's coming down to.
Yeah. And I don't know if it was intentional or not by Lincoln, but he has recruited the right guys right now as a group to continue building the 2023 class. Like you said, him and Trayon are seem to be best friends since being kids. Mekhi and Malachi have been really good friends, and it seems like DeAndre is part of their friend group. And Luke Haas, while he's nowhere near them, because both of those groups are on different sides of the country, and Luke is just in the middle in Oklahoma here, but Luke communicates with them regularly. So like these guys are all kind of already friends, and they're just going to their junior year of high school. 3 of them are going to play together. So like they're a great foundation to what they're going to build. And this is just the offensive side. There's still a lot of things that they could help Lincoln and Grinch to bring in some defensive players that have similar mindsets, team first mentality. But obviously you want them to have maybe a little bit more swagger or cockiness because they are defensive players potentially. But Lincoln just found the guys he wanted, again, intentionally or not, and they helped him get all this other talent that's coming in 2023.
Yeah. I mean, the level of talent, I don't think there's been a better start for any recruiting class in recent memory than the Sooners so far. I mean, I don't know how it could get much better. I think what is the number 2 quarterback, number 1 wide receiver, number 4 running back, number 2 tight end, and one of the top centers. I know he's not really ranked on 247. I think he's going to really go up the charts here pretty soon. But I mean, if you would have told me that 3 months ago, this is where we'd be sitting 2 weeks before football started, I would have told you you're crazy, especially for the 2023 class. But it's a good time. I think they're just getting started. The amount of talent on the offensive side, it's going to be so good that whenever the defense practices against them, they're not going to see anything better across the country. And that whenever that 2023 class gets rolling, there won't be a better offense in the country as far as talent goes. So it's going to be, one of those deals, iron sharpens iron. And, any defensive player that wants to come play here, they're going to go up against the best every single day. And you'd like to think that would be attractive, because at that point, if you're playing against the best, you're going to have a great chance to be great and go to the NFL. So I think that's all I've got on Inniss. I mean, I'm sure we're going to be talking about him as the high school season progresses, how he's doing. And, a few other guys in 2023 we'll be watching closely. But as far as like wide receiver depth, we're kind of projecting a couple years in advance, just trying to talk to see what it would look like and what that offense, as far as who would be on the field and the different packages. So in this scenario, we're assuming that Hazelwood, Weiss, Mims, Stoops, and Mike Woods are all gone. So probably all those guys will get drafted. Maybe not Drake Stoops. It just depends on his year. But I mean, Hazelwood and Weiss, they should put it together over the next year or two. And Mims, he's already, if he puts another great season together this year, he's going to be gone. Same with Mike Woods. So we're just assuming that they're all going to be gone. So really the list for as it stands right now, it's probably going to change between now and 2 years, but you've got Jalil Farooq, Mario Williams, Cody Jackson, Raleek Brown. Well, Raleek Brown is kind of that 50-50 kind of guy. Brandon Inniss, and those are the guys that are committed or on the roster at this point. Notice, I mean, there's only 2022 is Raleek Brown. So we brought up DeAndre Moore, Jose did, and then maybe some 2022 transfers. So do you think that Brandon Inniss and Mekhi Lemon, with that current depth chart, would come in and be year one starters? What do you think?
Maybe one of them, but not both. They would have to, like, one of them would even still have to really impress in camp, probably need to be an early enrollee to make sure that they're going through spring ball, summer ball, and just pretty much getting as much time with the playbook and with the coaches so that they can get that opportunity and not have to redshirt their freshman year. But I mean, we've done Whodats on Jalil and Mario, and those are coming out soon. But in summary, those are probably going to be some of the best receivers that we've seen in Oklahoma. Mario Williams is just extremely talented, and with the chemistry that Jalil and Caleb have already coming into Oklahoma, it's going to make it pretty hard to stop those guys, right? So unless maybe one of them can fit in the slot, if I don't know if really either of them play slot in high school, they seem to be both wideouts. But again, we could get a transfer. One of those guys, Cody, I think plays slot, if I remember correctly. So Cody could kind of just be the guy that fills in the slot position. Maybe if we go to 4 receiver sets, one of those guys can come in, but it's hard to think that they'll just come in as true freshmen and make an impact, barring transfers or a horrific injury that takes one of those guys out that you mentioned earlier. They're probably going to be redshirted freshman year, but that's not the worst thing either. That extends their career in college. College is a fun time, and that also makes it easier for them to get to know the playbook and understand how to play at the college level, because we'll also have guys on the other side of the ball that are going to challenge them, and it's not going to be very easy to impress the coach.
Yeah. We're talking about comparison, and there's some guys on this list that are more burners, or and what comes to mind is Mario Williams. I mean, he flies down the field, and Raleek Brown is fast too, if I remember right. I'd have to double check. So and Raleek will be playing that weird kind of a utility tool or do it all type of guy. So it just depends on the depth. I mean, I think with the amount of running backs that are coming in, with Trayon Webb being there, and then Gavin Sawchuk and a few others, we might get a transfer. It looks like he might be more of the receiver type. So you've got Brown and Williams as kind of more of the burners that could be like the, play a slot or play in one of the outside positions. And then I made the comparison of Jalil Farooq and Brandon Inniss. Generally the same body type, same type of player, but Inniss might be a little more polished by the time he shows up in Norman. So those two guys are definitely going to compete against each other for playing time. And then Cody Jackson, I feel like he's kind of like a Hazelwood and a Weiss, like a little bit. I can't remember how tall Cody Jackson is. Do you know by chance how tall Cody Jackson is?
But I'll do a quick Google here for you.
Yeah, I was actually just looking real quick. I mean, okay, so Cody's actually 6 foot as well, but he's a little skinnier. I think he's a little bit faster, and he, it's going to be some interesting deals, who they beef up, who they don't, who they try to keep smaller. But I really think, first of all, the 2022 class, I don't think Luther Burden is totally out of the picture anymore. I still think that he is interested. I think he was dealing with the whole idea of being committed and going and visiting to other schools, putting on their jerseys, talking to other coaches all the time. I think he was having some internal battles with that. And if he really enjoyed, I don't know. I think if it were me, talking to multiple teams, multiple coaches, I would rather be uncommitted at that point. Like whenever I would commit, in my mind, I would just kind of shut it down. And so I think for him to make a honest decision, I think he had to just step off the commitment. So I still think he's talking with the Sooners. And I think I saw that he's talking about still visiting for a game. I don't know which game. It'll be sometime in September, I think. But if he can come back on campus, I really like our odds. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's always a chance, right? This decommitment doesn't mean that the Sooners are out, like you mentioned. And it very might be that he just has like that the morals where like he felt bad. It felt like he was cheating on the Sooners, I guess, in a way. That if he's still going to visit other schools and, like you said, putting on their uniforms and listening, you're pretty much trying to find the best deal, right? I don't know. I only expect it if he's to leave Oklahoma, then I honestly think Georgia is kind of where he would go. I don't think as much as people in the area might think he's going to Missouri, because I know his last post on Instagram, I believe, was him in a Tigers uniform. It probably would be cool for him to stay home and play for his, the hometown team or whatever, but why not go to Georgia? Like, if you're going to leave the Sooners, at least go to another powerhouse in the Powerhouse Conference. And they have a lot of great talent too. They've been recruiting very well everywhere on the offense. I don't recall too much on their defense recruiting, but I'm sure they're doing great on that side as well. So like, he's gonna experience success either as a Sooner or as a Dog. We just rather see him in crimson and cream, right? Yeah. So hopefully he does come back. He does get to visit in September and talk to Lincoln, all the other coaches, and hopefully there's a couple recruits like a Brandon Inniss or a Trayon Webb that come during that same visit and kind of talk to him so that they can kind of blend him in, even though they're not in the same recruiting class, kind of bring him in already into the group that they seem to be building, and like kind of sell him more on the idea like, hey, we're going to be on campus together. Like, you're going to be here 1 year earlier. Maybe we'll get to learn from you. You can kind of teach us the ropes kind of thing. And I mean, hopefully he does come back in the next few months, because he is a 22 recruit. So he'll have to make a decision. I believe December is early signing day. So I would expect him to at least have a decision by then. I don't think he would be a spring commitment.
Yeah, you're probably right. So, I mean, ideally, it's happened for CD Lamb, Theo Weiss. They both decommitted and came back. So it's not the end of the world, but odds are he probably is going to move on and make his decision between Missouri and Georgia. So assuming that he does, I really think the Sooners are not going to not at least have one true wide receiver in this 2022 class. So I think they're going to definitely at least offer another 3 or 4 star guy, probably just one that is good, maybe not quite as good or as polished right now, but, not to say that the guy gets on campus and he doesn't turn out to be better than Luther Burden or just as good or even slightly worse. But I mean, that's still probably going to be above average. But I really think where they're going to pick it up is this transfer portal. I really think, with this whole one-time transfer rule coming in now and the thought of playing in the SEC, which, it very well might be next year, it might be in the 2023 year. I don't know, but I think there's going to be a great talent or two that gets frustrated, doesn't like their playing time, doesn't like their situation. And if they enter in the transfer portal, I don't care who it is. If there's a scholarship open for the Sooners and they offer it to them, I would imagine that the Sooners would be the best landing spot for any top end wide receiver talent. So I know it kind of hurts right now not really having a true wide receiver in the 2022 class, but they might pick up a 3 or 4 star, pick up a great transfer, a kid that, probably was a 4 or 5 star coming out of high school that would be so excited about right now. I mean, we look at Mike Woods. I think he was a 3 or 4 star coming out of high school, but his ceiling this year is enormous. I mean, it's huge. He could explode 1,000 plus, close to 10 touchdowns and go straight to the league. And especially if he does that this year, every transfer for the wide receiver position is going to want to be a part of the Sooners. Already the quarterbacks want to be a part of it. It's kind of over now with, Rattler and then Williams and then Malachi Nelson. But that same thought at the receiver position, I think, will be there. And so I'm not worried. I mean, think about all the depth and all the talent, but another thing that they could do is they could hold a scholarship and put an extra one in the 2023 class. You think about Mekhi Lemon, Brandon Inniss, and then if DeAndre Moore, Lemon and Nelson's teammate commits as well, which I think he wants to commit at the end of this season, into his football season. And then you think of, there's one more out there. What is it? Is it Jordan Hale? I think his last name is Hale. You could take those 4 guys, which, who would have ever thought you could ever take those 4 guys, let alone 3 of them, but you could hold a scholarship for that. And I mean, whatever. I mean, you get those 4 guys. I don't think that we're going to be crying over, losing Luther Burden if those guys come to town.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, I'm thinking that it would make more sense with how Lincoln recruits, because it seems to be, in a way, kind of methodical. Like, for example, as quarterback, right? He only goes after top recruits in the odd number of years. I think he does something similar. He's going to start doing something similar, if not already, with just offensive talent. So think about it. You're going to bring in, he brought in 3 recruits this year, right, with this class, and Caleb Williams, with the Caleb Williams class. And then 2023 right now set up that he's got a quarterback and right now 2 wide receivers, which could be 4 by the end of it. So, like, why fill in, one, or like, you don't need to fill in the 2022 class if it's unnecessary, because we already have a lot of great talent in the wide receiver room. So maybe, like you said, save that extra scholarship, just toss it over to 2023 class if that's possible, or just let it go unused, give it to a walk-on that's deserving, something like that. But I don't think it's going to be too big of a deal not having a true wide receiver for the 2022 class. Talking about transfers, though, I kind of expect Ohio State to start seeing a lot of transfers from, going elsewhere. They recruit, Ryan Day and the staff recruits very differently than even Nick Saban. I think Nick Saban's probably unquestionably the best recruiter right now. And Nick Saban has some sort of method to what he's doing. Yes, he always brings in 4 and 5 star talent, but he's not just filling up a room with guys that at one point in their football careers were the best in the area, and now they're not even going to be seen as okay. Like, Ryan Day just kind of fills up a room to a point where, like, these guys might not be willing to just sit there for 2 or 3 years like guys at Alabama do. Because if you think about their quarterback situation, they have, so I think CJ Stroud was a pretty highly recruited guy. They have Quinn Ewers, who just left high school to go to college. I think they had the previous 2021 number one quarterback. And what are they? Are they just not going to? I don't expect him to just stop recruiting quarterbacks, because he just seems to want all the talent, which is fine. But you should also kind of have the expectation that some of those guys aren't going to be willing to sit for that long. And we could just be snagging former Buckeyes.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the same thing could be argued about the Sooners too. I mean, you pull 4 or 5-star receivers in one class. There's only so many spots. So,
yeah.
And then it's just going to be easier to move elsewhere. And, maybe something about that one-time transfer rule that brings some, I don't know, some security to a kid like that as a 4-star or a 5-star, 4 of the top 5 receivers coming to play for the Sooners. But they all know that if it goes south and they're not playing, they get a one-time transfer rule, and any big-time program will probably take them, barring anything crazy. Yeah. So we might see more willingness to team up like this and just load up the talent, compete. And if you don't get the starting position or whatever happens, you go transfer somewhere, another Power 5 school, you walk into that room and you probably start. It's just going to be interesting to see. So I don't know, but I think that's all I've got. I really think there's going to be a big time 2022 transfer sitting out there that the Sooners are going to snag, that we have no idea what's going to happen, at this time. And I think we'll be very happy with what the receiving depth looks like going in next season and then the 2023 season.
Definitely.
So, all right. Well, we really appreciate the support and watching this emergency podcast. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, comment, let us know what you think about Brandon Inniss, the wide receiver depth, one-time transfer rule, and what Lincoln's doing with this offense. Let us know what you think. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at 2Plane Sports, and we'll catch you later this week. Appreciate it.